So you mentioned as an actor you appeared in two indie classics, Short Bus and Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Since you're a veteran of independent productions, what factors do you believe made Short Bus and Hedwig break out the way they did in their eras? And do you still think it's possible in the current film industry environment?
Yeah, so Hedwig, I mean, it's John is a very dear friend of mine, um, my extended family, and a mentor. I've learned a
Gotcha.
lot about um, being a human being and a decent human being. On a John Cameron Mitchell set, there was equanimity. You know, in a lot of Hollywood and movie sets, there's a hierarchy, a vertical structure that is cruel. When you have, uh, background actors stuck in a shitty place somewhere, cold room, bad food, and then the stars get like a big truck and everything. It's a system that rears despots and spoiled brats. If you're a parent, you probably know if you do that you're just going to be trouble. But for some reason that is was the way in entertainment. um it's not really fair. So, but on in Short Bus, it was like there are no trailers. You know, the person whose job is to like go around and like get the garbage and put it in they have they're as equally important as everyone. And what we had were stations of places you could lie down if you were tired. So whoever was tired had that bed. We shared and um there's something I seeing John and having he has abundant respect, patience, and authentic interest in people. And I see him talking this, with the same presence with everybody. And I love that. And he comes from a space of like hit the heart, head, and funny bone. Try to hit those pillars. The humor helps the medicine go down, but there's always a utility in his movies, and something to be said about the human condition.
Right.
And I love that. And Chester
Yeah.
Brown as well. Both of them, I introduced them in New York recently for the
Wow.
first time in person. They're the same shape, the same height, width, size. They're both elfin. They're both geniuses in their field. They're both very good people. Really, really so astonishing. Chester was raised Baptist. He kind of went away from the Baptist thing, but there's something in the Christianity that he was raised with that is the best part, and he retains, and then he sort of defines his Christianity in his own place. While John is Scottish, and he comes from a background of care. Like the Scots just kind of like have a civilization of which they're considering everybody. So that's paramount. Paramount of importance is to like be a decent human being. So I love that. And I think that with Hedwig and the Angry Inch, it was just like what made it what made them exceptional was setting the bar high for an ambitious uh topic, an idea that you were just going to go for. Short Bus was explicit actual sex, but it was not pornographic. It was
Right.
using, John said it was like Hedwig was a musical. He wanted to use sex as a kind of like storytelling device in which to explore the dynamics of human relationships. So the first 5 minutes he says was he calls it breaking the hymen, get it all out of the way and then get into and then relax into the story of humans. So
Right.
in my work, I also tell love stories. So that's why I think John and I get along so well. And I think it's about having that kind of, I guess it's kind of a punk ethos of going for something and then doing it with a kind heart, doing it with precision, doing it with not sacrificing the content to like, you know, buff it down so it's, easily palatable. Like these are enjoyable films. They're not hard, difficult films,
Right.
but we are standing up for what we see and want, and we will defend it at all costs. So I think that is the virtue and why it resonates. Everybody wants that. Like people want to see that kind of expression, and it's so seldom that you see that with an abundance of care and heart and humor. So I see, I mean, John is the executive producer of Paying for It.
Mm.
And he has always supported me. I give him notes on his scripts and he gives me notes on mine. And we're just peers, lifelong peers. And I feel that somebody had written on Letterboxd that this is like a wonderful kind of follow-up to Short Bus. And
Ah,
it shares its spirit,
yeah,
so yeah, I think at this time there's a lot of interesting work out there. The internet allows us to see abundance of like a very vibrant history. You can go back hundreds of years and revisit people who are astonishing that you had never heard of before. But at the same time, there's a lot of fear, fear of backlash. I think at the root of it in corporate culture, it seems like I guess the bottom line is people are afraid of losing money. They want to make money. And it's not about like the fear of the backlash, I think, is less about looking like a jerk, but more about like, will that impact our box office? So it feels like studio
interesting.
heads are maybe paralyzed by a fear, and that's clouding their ability to recognize a good idea. Thus, they're kind of like making decisions that are kind of like um, they, you know, this emphasis on uh, IP, intellectual property, finding a thing that's already got a track history. It's all like risk mitigation, and
Ah,
you can't really make great art by risk mitigation. You can, but it's not going to be boffo. It's just going to be like meh. The big movies that are big end up having some kind of grist-worthy thing to them.
yeah.
Something original and something, you know, we kind of need to see that. So I just don't know about. I mean, what is cool is like I come from DIY. I come from that kind of personal expression, and people have often said, I've heard, oh, it's so hard to find. Like they're like used to love to find something, and we would. I'm a musician first and foremost, so people often say, I love finding a band. It was my band. Record dive, find this. It was I think you still have to do that, especially now on the internet. There's
Yeah,
just so much stuff that you have to
yeah.
really look. And there's a
Well,
really wonderful movement that's kind of a micro cinema movement of people taking their cell phone cameras, finding salons to play in each city. I know I was just in LA, and there's a wonderful space called Whammy Theater. This is like where you bring tiny little movies to. So there are people doing it. I think to be an artist today is a real commitment. You have to really love the work because you're not going to get paid for it.
right.
But there's always art is always a reflection of people's concerns, and it usually becomes very bright during difficult times in society. So 1968,
Yeah.
I was
So
hanging out with David Cronenberg. I had lunch with him the other day. He was a
I
big
love
fan of
David.
Paying for It, and we got introduced, and there was a storm outside, so we spent hours together in a cafe. And I said, as he was walking me to the subway, I was like, "It's just like 1968, eh, Dave?" Because that's when the world was exploding politically, but that is also when some great movies and art and music came out. And he said, yes, it is. As a guy who lived through 68, it's like 68, but worse. And I
Wow.
was hanging out with Art Spiegelman in New York City. He invited Chester and I to his place. I was astonished because I'm such a big fan. And he said the same thing. It's worse. So I think it's like
Yeah.
we're living in volatile times. And I think we turn to art. You know, Art is one of the spaces that we can express questions or confusion. So I think I'm looking forward to seeing some good stuff.
Wow, it was an honor to talk to you and to get your perspective because it's so brilliant and beautiful, and it allows for an expression in your film that comes through.
Well, it was important to bring it to the United States. I was afraid I had some anxiety going down there because of all the border stuff and the
Well, of
tension.
course.
But I thought, darn it, I have so many good American friends. that needs to see this film because this film is kind of like a warm hug. And I went there and I met so many good people. Um, you know, I realized there was this cliche in Canada of the obnoxious American. We've been raised in Canada, like tourists would be like, ah, the loud ones would be American. And it's almost like a cultural cliche. And I realized all those people are gone. Like I didn't see that. Like, or I'm not even sure if they existed. When I went to New York and LA, I was like met by warm, funny, thoughtful, deep people, good-natured people. And I was like, wow, that is wonderful to see. That I know it's a challenging time for everybody,
Yeah.
and we're muddling through all kinds of difficult stuff. Um, but I was very heartened to see the kind of care and good nature of many people. That makes me hopeful.
I think you will be embraced here in Chicago as well, and I'm looking forward to, you know, you getting this week-long run and promoting your film. So,
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I appreciate because it's all grassroots.
yeah,
It's all for me reaching out to friends like Elliot Page and Mae Martin who threw their weight behind us, and then also getting really great reviews, and then the tiny team at Film Movements, just like we're working it. And so like even people like you are kind of part of our extended team.
well, I
It's
hope so.
really It's sort of an extension of when I was a kid and postering the streets of Vancouver, putting up our band posters with a mixture of like milk and water. Carnation evaporated milk and water is very sticky. And we'd all poster.
Good,
This is
good
the
tip.
same sort of thing in a different, using different tools.
This is Patrick McDonald for HollywoodChicago.com. Copyright 2026.